Hello everyone, my name is FusionX and in this video I'll be covering the basics of JavaScript. Before we begin, I want to say that if you want, you can join my Discord server through the link that will be listed in the description below. The name of the server is overwritten and we have a custom coded bot for the server. Anyways, without further ado, let's get on with it. To begin, we are going to first look at log.js, which is basically how you log in JavaScript. So it's very simple. All you have to do is console.log and then what you want to log. Make sure that if you are logging text, you use speech marks, backticks or single quotes that we'll be discussing later on. We'll be starting with the definitions and let's have a look at the static first. So as you can see, it's very basic at the start. All we have to do is type what we want, equal symbol and the value of it. In this case we have a equals 1, b equals 2, c 3, so on and so forth. So this is the easiest way to do it. This is not recommended because if you want to find a variable, it will not pop up, and let's say you have a long name for the variable, it will be hard if you get a type error because you may mistype the variable name. Moving on, we'll look at the const next. As you can see here, we have const foo is foo, and if we console log this, the console will return foo. As you can see here, we are using a constant variable. That's what const is short for, constant. So you are not allowed to change the variable, and if you attempt to change the variable declaration, you'll get a error, and it will be called declaration to a constant variable. And you can see here, if we call bar as bar and then console log it, it will return a bar. And once again, if we try to do it with any constant variable, it will still bring the exact same error. There is a way to get around this, and that will be having a look at the let. As we can see here, we have let a equals 1. And now we can keep chaining the variable name. As we can see here in the const, it would return an error if we attempted to change its definition. But now that we're using let, we get no error. Next we'll be looking at the last one, which is var. As we can see here, we are changing its definition. If we attempted to say let a equals 6, we would get thrown an error saying a had already been declared. As we can see up here, we have already declared what it was, so we cannot redefine it. What we can do with let is just type what we want. With var, however, we can retype the variable name and simply just replace it with what we want. So if we were to console.log a over here, it would simply return a. If we were to console.log a over here, it would return b, as you can see here. And then finally, of course, if we were to just log c, which had not been changed, we'll get thrown c. Oh, not that. So you may be wondering the difference between let and var. Well, I kind of explained that already, but just to make sure that you guys are sure, we have these two variables, and we can see here, if we attempt to declare this again, we get thrown an error. But as with var, we won't get thrown an error. It will just simply replace what we declared as. Now we are going to look at the equal operator. As you can see here, we'll quickly have a look at if statements so that we are clear on how we define stuff. Sorry, not define stuff, how we check something, and we have const v equals v, const bar equals bar. And as we can see here, if is a function, as we can see here. And if we just try to do if and then surrounded with brackets, we'll get a syntax error, as we have not provided the expression. If you guys are wondering what if, else if, and else is, it's basically checking whether or not something is true or not. As we can see here, we have given an expression for a statement here, but there's no expression if the statement is true. And that's what if, else if, and else is. Else is a bit different though. But first let's have a look at else if. Here we have if foo equals bar, foo is equal to bar. And as you can see here, that would be false. The definition is actually foo. Else if foo equals beer, console.log foo is equal to beer. This is basically saying if this statement above is false, which it is, but this statement is true, then it will log foo is equal to beer. We can make an else if chain if we wanted to, as we can see here. We can have multiple else if statements. And now that we're having another else if statement, it means if these two statements are not true, and if foo equals biz, foo is equal to biz. Else means if none of these statements above are true. So all of this is false. Foo is not equal to bar, beer, or biz. The actual definition is foo, and we'll be covering this dollar symbol with the curly brackets later. Now we can have a look at the equal operator. As you can see here, we use more than one equal symbol. So we have a console list equals square brackets. We'll be covering that later. As you can see over here in the array section, if you do not know what that is, we will be covering it, so don't worry. And basically, if there's two ways to check something, we can use triple equal symbol or double equal symbol. Triple equal is a lot more strict, as you can see here. With double equal symbol, if it's equal to 0, the size of the list is equal to 0. As you can see here, there's nothing in here. If the list is equal to 0, checking it with triple equal symbols, then it is quite literally equal to 0. For example, if list equals 0, then this statement would be true instead of false. And this is not how you check, and by the way, I did deliberately make a typo over here, so make sure you do put the correct definition in here, otherwise you will get thrown a type error saying you have not defined, that's not defined, and you cannot check something using a single equal sign. As we can go back to the static over here, that's it declaring something, not checking something. So now this is the correct syntax. Let expression, let statement, and you're meant to put if the expression you're saying is true, then the statement, what you want to happen. And as you can see here, if list is equal to 0, statement. Let's just say the statement is console.log this. If the statement is true, which it is over here, we can see, it will log list. We'll be covering what it will actually return later on if you guys want me to make another tutorial. But moving on, we will be now looking at an array. As you can see here, we have square brackets, which is also referred to as a list, or in coding language, an array. So we can use it in any form we want. We can use let, const, static, or var. Either way works. So what it actually is a list of objects. So for example, if I wanted to say let array equals square bracket, I can say let array 5 equals and then my list. And we have to separate it using commas, like so. And that's how you create the list. You can also store either variables inside. such as if we wanted to store array 3, we could actually do that. We can store other variables if we wanted. Of course that's static, so that's going to return any. Or if we were to do array 4, if we have not used static, we can simply press tab over here if we wanted to. And that's the advantage of using these three instead of the static. Moving on to item number, we have this list over here. Item 1, item 2, item 3 and item 4. There's a quick thing you need to remember. Computers count from 0, not 1. So if we say array 0, that will actually not be null or undefined. It will in fact be the first item, as computers count from 0. We count like 1, 2, 3. Computers start from 0. So the easiest way to just remember that is a computer normally, some binary coding language is normally 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, just repeated. If you just search coding background, you might actually find that. Array 1 would be item 2, as our computers start from 0, so that would actually be the second item in the array. Now there's a way to join arrays and separate them. So here we have an array. By the way, it doesn't matter if you let or const. If you're going to change the variable, just make sure it is let instead of const. As like mentioned earlier, you can't change the definition of const. So console.log array.join, and then in quote, single quote or double quote or backticks, we can use what we want to join it with. So this will return foo, the thing we want to join it with, bar, beer, so on and so forth. We can join it with whatever we want. If we wanted to join it with comma, we can do that like so. That simple. Quick note there is, if you want to do a line break, which means go into a new line. So for example, if we wanted to do foo, bar, beer and biz, the way to do that is to console.log, or you don't have to console.log, but for demonstration purposes, console.log array.join any string type you want, so any of these would be valid, and then we put backslash and then n. This basically is a line break. Now we'll be looking at pushing items inside of an array. Basically what we are doing here is we have let array equals square bracket, and just a quick note before I explain this, if array was a constant variable, then we would get an error, assignment to constant variable. This is because when we push something, we are basically adding something in the array, meaning we are changing its definition. It's changing from, so here it is blank. When we push foo into it, array is actually now foo, like so. Now when we push bar into it, it will be foo and bar. That is how it works, pushing stuff into the array. Over here we can see if we console.logged it, you might see that we actually get the square brackets. This is because it is an object. This is not a string. We'll be covering a string after I've explained this. But array is not simple text. Even though we are putting text into this, this is not considered just text. If we want to make it just text and remove these square brackets, we can do array.toString, which self-explanatory, converts it into a string. And in the console it will go from the square brackets and just return it. Now let's have a look at strings. So let's look at a single and double first of all. Any of these are valid. Const foo equals single quote, which is basically the item. If you're on UK keyboard layout, it will be the item normally above shift or / and like so, that will return an error, but that's what it is. and if we log that, we'll simply get foo. Strings can be used to just put simple text in. Console.log foo2. So here we have logged it as a definition of the same thing, except we have used speech marks, which is referred to as double quote. You can call it speech marks if you want, but I prefer to call it as just double quote. The last one is backticks. This one is the most useful. So here we have cons foo equals foo, cons bar equals bar. And by the way, regardless whether or not these are, one of them is speech marks, one of them is single quote, it does not matter. You can combine any if you want, as long as it's a string. As we can see here, these are the valid types. We have single, we have double, and then we have backticks. If you're wondering how you get the backtick on your keyboard, it is normally to the left of one or in between tab and escape. And this is an example of using ES6 modules. Before we use ES6 modules, we would have to do this. Is an example of, let me show you quickly. If we were not using ES6 modules, we would do console.log. This is an example, sorry my spelling, this is an example of using ES5 modules. And the difference between the two is we cannot, as you can see here currently, you cannot put variables inside the string. We'd have to do the string plus foo plus bar plus and then another string, which is not very consistent. That is why we have these ES6 modules. It makes life a lot easier. We can simply put backticks, $symbol, like so. We can put $symbol, curly brackets by holding shift and square brackets, and then inside of here you can choose a variable. Now we will be learning the random item from an array. So here we have item 1, 2, 3 and 4. Let random item equals our array name, and JavaScript makes it easy as we don't have to import math. As in Python, you'd have to type import math. JavaScript already has math imported, and we can do math.floor, our array name dot length, which is basically the amount of items or elements inside. In this case it would be 4. It's here 1, 2, 3, 4 times, this symbol means times, math.random, which is basically choosing a random number. And now if we console.log that, it will choose a random item from these two. And basically this won't actually return a number that is given, it will actually return the number in the item. What I mean by that is, let's say the random item that was chosen is 2, because obviously this is math, so this would be array 2 for an example. We'll actually cover that, we have covered that over here, as you can see here. Array 1 would be item 2, array 0 would be item 1. And so it would bring the number, and because of that it will result in giving the third item of the array. Now we will be covering IsNan. Here we have const a equals 1. IsNan basically means, is it not a number? Is it a number or is it not? Here we can say IsNan a. This is false because it is a number, and here is checking if it's not a number, so it will return false. Const foo equals foo. IsNan foo, that is true because it is not a number, and here we are checking if it is a number. Or sorry, if it's not a number. So that is how you check it, and there's an exclamation mark operator which is quite handy, which basically means if you want to check if it's not something. For example, we have exclamation mark IsNan. Basically this means, is it, how do I explain it? Okay, so basically it means, is it a, it's basically doing the inverse, pretty much. So here it's checking if it is nan, which it is. Here it's checking if it's not nan, which is false. And we can check this by using this statement here. We have exclamation mark, the item we want to check, which basically, like I said before, is doing the inverse. We can use not equal to, which is exclamation mark equal, or we can make it stricter by using double equal. That is how you check the inverse. For example, as explained here, this is false because it's doing the inverse. If this was false, then this would be true, because it's pretty much just doing the inverse of what was said before. As we can see here, I did leave something out, and here we have an error. As we can see here, if I zoom in on that, let foo equals foo, let bar equals bar, and we can see here, if I say let foo underscore bar equals foo bar, but we include the speech mark, or in my case I would call it a double quote, it would return an error. This is because when we're using the string, the computer wants to know when we want to end the string. So as we can see here, if I quickly just make a file called test.js, as we can see here, if I say const a equals, we can see here inside this, the computer wants to know when we end the string. As we can see here, this string lets the computer know we want to end the string now. So in this case, string would be AAS. But there's one problem. If we put a quote in, let's say we inside the string we actually want it to include that, we'd get thrown an error. And if we look here, unterminated string literal. There is a way to fix this. Let me just delete this quickly. It's really simple. Keep note though that if we were using single quotes instead of double quotes, this will not return an error. This is only because it wants to know the item that we started with, and when we end it with the same item. This is how you solve the error. There's a very useful operator called backslash, which is to the right of shift or to the left of Z. So basically we have let foo equals foo, let bar equals bar. Let foo underscore bar equals foo, backslash, and then speech mark. This basically lets the computer know this is not trying to end the string. This is actually included in the string. So if we were to console.log this, if we were to console.log foo bar, it would return this foo bar, and the reason for that is because it doesn't include a backslash. Backslash is basically just escaping a character. If we wanted to include the backslash, as we can see here, if I was to just keep a normal backslash, nothing, just say normal backslash, like so, we'd get thrown an error because you can't just say backslash, because this is trying to escape something. But if we wanted to include that, we would have to do double backslash, which basically means it's escaping backslash. If we were console.logging this, you would see foo backslash. And of course, now if you wanted to escape a character, you can see we'll get thrown an error because this has already been escaped. So we'd have to put another backslash and then what we wanted. And this will return this, like so. That is basically episode 1 of today's tutorial. If you guys want me to do more of this, just tell me in the comments below or join my Discord server as stated at the start of this video. Will be linked in the description. The name of the server is called Overwritten Community and I'm the owner of it. And you can just let me know in the comments if you want, but I'd be preferred if you go on my Discord server and tell me. This is only because most of the time I have comments turned off and I don't want to be spammed, but most of the time I'm on Discord, so I'll get the notifications straight away. And if you did like the video, make sure to subscribe. It's always free and you can unsubscribe whenever you want if you do not like my content anymore. And make sure to share this with other people if you want. Tomorrow's video will be either episode 1 again, or we'll be starting a project. Our project will be a Discord bot, and basically we'll be coding our own bot to do certain things. And if you did join my server, you would basically see what a bot is if you have never seen one before. Anyway, that is all I have time for today. Hopefully I'll be able to record tomorrow. If not, it will be on a weekend or hopefully on Friday. And I'll see you guys in the next video.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face. Tell me that you love me, even